After staging a hate crime hoax, Jussie Smollett and his team actually want an apology from the city of Chicago. Think about that for a second. Also, Kim Foxx, the state's attorney who says she recused herself, was actually only joking when she said that. Plus, MSNBC seems to get upset when people make fun of the Green New Deal. We'll go over that plus a whole lot more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, the fallout from the Jussie Smollett case continues. As we talked about on Wednesday, the state prosecutors said they're going to drop the case. He's free to go. Records are sealed. Evidence is sealed. And the whole case just stinks so much that I think it's going to linger for a while. And I think the FBI is going to get involved. There's been a lot that's gone on in the last couple days. Jussie Smollett wants an apology from the city, and the city wants payback in a big way. Take a look at what Fox News reports on what the city is asking from Smollett and his team. The city of Chicago delivered a letter to Jussie Smollett's legal team seeking $130,000 from the actor, a spokesman for the city law department revealed to Fox News on Thursday. As Smollett's lawyers demanded an apology from Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson for dragging an innocent man's character through the mud. It is the mayor and the police chief who owe him an apology for dragging an innocent man's character through the mud. Jussie has paid enough, the legal team's statement said. All right, at this press conference, the mayor talked about paying back the city, and here's just some of what was said during that exchange. Given that he doesn't feel any sense of contrition or remorse, my recommendation is when he writes a check in the memo section, he can put the word "I'm accountable" for the hoax. The mayor stood shoulder to shoulder with the city's police force Tuesday afternoon, denouncing prosecutors for dropping charges against Empire Star and slamming the episode as a whitewash of justice. All right, so that kind of brings you up to speed on what's been going on. But the real news, the real issue is State's Attorney Kim Foxx. She's the one that was in charge of this investigation, and her office is the one that decided, despite the evidence, despite the grand jury indictment, despite their own office saying that, there's evidence to try him and that he's probably guilty, they decided to drop the case. And investigating her, and we talked about this a little bit on Wednesday, it's just looking like more and more corruption, the typical kind of thing. Let's just review a little bit on what CNN revealed on her ties with this case and the influence that some others looks like put on her to make her drop it. This is from CNN. Text messages obtained by CNN through an open records request show Smollett family friend Tina Chen, a former chief of staff for First Lady Michelle Obama and a lawyer, reached out to Fox on February 1. Chen wrote the family had concerns about the investigation. Fox emailed Chen saying in part, "Spoke to Superintendent Johnson. I convinced him to reach out to FBI to ask that they take over the investigation. He's reaching out now and will get back to me shortly." Okay, so CNN went on with the report, and here's again where it gets weird, and just want to review that before we get into some other weird stuff. Later, another person identified by Fox's office as a family friend asked the prosecutor whether they could talk on the phone. She says Chen gave her Fox's number. Hours later, Fox texts the unidentified family friend that she spoke to the police superintendent earlier. He made the ask, trying to figure out the logistics. The person responds, "OMG, this would be a huge victory." Okay, so now we learn that there's even more to the situation. So recall what Fox had said in as this information came forward and how she recused herself. And here's the Washington Examiner actually dove into this, and they found that, yeah, you know what? She didn't actually recuse herself. Take a look at this. Cook County, Illinois State's Attorney Kimberly Foxx never legally recused herself from the Jussie Smollett case, her office said Thursday. The state's attorney did not formally recuse herself or the office based on any actual conflict of interest, Fox's spokeswoman Tandra Simonton said in a statement. 2 days after the charges against the Empire actor were dropped. As a result, she did not have to seek the appointment of a special prosecutor under state law. The spokeswoman said Fox's office used the word recuse to talk about her involvement in the case as a colloquial use rather than the legal definition of the term. So she's joking about it? Take a look at this. This is what she said in an interview just this week.
But Foxx recused herself a week before the charges were released.
It had become clear that Mr. Smollett had gone from victim to suspect. I don't even want the appearance that my involvement with this case would in any way impede this investigation.
The other thing that's just amazing is this part about the evidence being sealed, okay? You can't look at it anymore. It's just done. And guess what? Apparently, that was done by accident.
A lot of people talking about that, worrying about that here, thinking that that was quite odd how quickly the case was sealed. She is now saying she believes that the entire case was sealed in error, that the court case was sealed in error. She believes the error made by the clerk's office, and she talked about potentially unsealing it. We are going to be waiting to see if that happens.
All right, there's also an email going around that the news outlets, CNN, Fox News, they've all obtained it, is circulating within the state's attorney's office saying, hey, dig up cases. Let's look at other cases where, evidence has been brought against a person and we haven't tried the case. And that looks like to me that if the FBI starts to investigate why everything was done so poorly here, that they have other case studies to bring up to kind of bolster their actions. And it, again, like we talked about on Wednesday, this is not your ordinary run-of-the-mill case. It's not one of those ones you dismiss all the time so you can get to the big ones. This is a big one. This is a hate crime hoax, perpetrated by a celebrity. This is what needs to be investigated. Otherwise, it's going to just tarnish any legitimate hate crimes that are going on. It's going to make it much harder for those victims to get a fair hearing when someone who even the prosecutors say, the evidence was against, and now he's just let go, and now the evidence was, sealed by accident, and now they're trying to, do CYA in case a bigger investigation comes up. It just really, really stinks. So something else that stinks, let's look at the Green New Deal. And whatever you do, don't make fun of it, okay? Because if you do, the left, there's nothing that drives the left crazier these days than when sane, logical, rational thinking people say, you know what, this idea is ridiculous. And on Wednesday, we talked about how Senator Mike Lee took to the Senate floor when they were, proposing to debate the Green New Deal and talked about, if airplanes are gone, Alaskans are going to have to use Star Wars Tauntauns, and Hawaii, traveling from the mainland to Hawaii, you're going to have to use Aquaman's giant seahorse. Well, Chris Hayes over at NBC just really didn't like that at all, and here's what he had to say.
Ideas as ambitious and controversial as the Green New Deal would seem to warrant some serious consideration, but not for Republicans like Senator Mike Lee, who's determined to make juvenile, wickedly unfunny jokes instead.
All right, so the Green New Deal doesn't warrant serious consideration because it's not serious. And Hayes went on, though. He didn't stop there.
I think they edited out the laugh track in that one. What's happening with the Earth's climate is actually a challenge to civilization the likes of which human beings have never seen. Global carbon emissions hit a record last year, according to a newly released report. Senator Lee and his Republican counterparts in the House, and basically the entire party, still insist that Democrats want to take away their cows.
That's exactly what the Green New Deal did talk about, but he goes on.
Are they bringing along the drums for the room shots? Do they have an audience in place? Their approach would itself be laughable, but for the fact that there are literally hundreds of millions of people's lives on the line.
So hundreds of millions of people's lives on the line. But when? Oh, wait. That's right. I forgot. 12 years. Hundreds of millions of people's lives are on the line in just 12 years. Folks, it's ridiculous. We have to look at the real science. If temperatures are going up, let's look at what is causing it. There's no one that wants to pollute the atmosphere. I mean, the biggest polluters in the world are India and China. Things are actually getting better in the United States. People are doing things on their own. They don't need a massive takeover of the government. Socialist policies that would change the economy, change jobs. The Green New Deal isn't just about the environment, remember. It's about jobs, it's about education, it's about giving people money to work who don't even want to work. Lots of crazy stuff. And now they seem to be just focusing on the environment because they know that all of these measures that were brought up in the Green New Deal just show how insane it really is. But finally, talk about insanity. Let's talk about education for a second, because I don't think there's anyone out there other than people on the left who talk about America's public education system as the shining example of the world. Whenever you hear that, whenever you hear someone say that, it's most likely coming from the left, because they know how important the education system is, not to making, smarter Americans, not to make better Americans, but to make Americans who think and act like the left wants them to. You see this over and over again. They've basically taken over the major universities in America, and it's, over the decades has gone down from, colleges to high schools to middle schools to elementary schools. And here I just wanted to leave you with just another example. Right here in my hometown of Houston, there's another example of a 7th grade teacher who's trying to indoctrinate kids on an anti-Trump message, and it is absolutely outrageous. Check this out. This was an assignment, again, on implication and inference, and a student was so outraged, he reached out to a state rep, a Republican state rep, Bristow Kane, and he posted this on his Facebook page. Take a look at this. Okay, so let's just go over some of what's on there, and if you can't read it, I'm going to go over it for you. But the essay excerpt and the questions are just outrageous. Here, this is an excerpt from an essay titled "Trump Against American Values." Throughout Donald Trump's, and there's no apostrophe, time in the American spotlight, we have come to see his true colors. It goes on. Some of Trump's policies have gone against what Americans value most, like the freedom of opportunity. One example of Trump being insensitive was when he announced his run for presidency. He focused on an idea of building a wall on the border of the United States and Mexico. All right, the walls were already there long before Trump. That's just what I'm going to say. And here are some of the questions. It says, which of the following conclusions would the author most likely agree with? America's future is in great danger. American leaders should promote equality. Donald Trump should not be president. Donald Trump will not be able to change. And then the next question, the reader can infer that the U.S. will impeach Donald Trump. Other Americans are also offended by Donald Trump. Mexican Americans are the major group upset with Donald Trump, and future generations will have to deal with racism. So this is what's going on. This was 7th grade teacher. This is Goose Creek, CISD. They were notified. They said it was a mistake, and they said that the teacher used poor judgment, but it's all resolved. But the thing is, even if this issue is resolved, it's going on over and over again across the country, and we need to be vigilant. We need to see what's going on with our kids and what assignments they're actually working on. So keep on it. Keep looking for that kind of stuff because it's happening all over. All right, folks, that's our show for today. I just wanted to give you a preview. We've got some great stuff coming. We're going to start a Patreon program, and I appreciate all your support. I want to give back, so we're going to come up with some cool levels. We're going to give away some merchandise like this, like you see me use on some of our more casual shows. We've got sneak peeks. We've got early viewings of the show. We've got Q&A. We've got some behind the scenes. And we've also got interviews coming to the show. Plus, in case you were ever wondering what really goes on in the mind of millennials, we're going to bring up a Ask a Millennial segment, and your questions will all be answered. So have a great weekend, folks. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.